Everything we do requires energy. This is true whether we are flying a kite, or swimming across a pool, or simply thinking about the next move in a game of chess. To get the energy we need, our bodies need fuel. This fuel is provided by the food we eat. Besides giving us energy, food provides the raw materials that make it possible to grow, repair tissues that are damaged, and produce new body cells. But our bodies can't use the food we eat right away. Getting the food into our mouths isn't enough. Our bodies need to process this food, break it down, and change it into different forms. All of this is done by a group of organs that together form the human digestive system. This program is about the digestive system, what it is, how it works, and why we cannot live without it. The human body is more complex and can do more things than any computer. Every part of the human body is made up of tiny cells. When we move our fingers, we are using thousands of muscle cells that contract and relax. When we think, we are using brain cells that send messages at incredible speed. The backs of our hands and all of our outer covering are made up of a sheet of skin cells. Altogether, each of us is composed of trillions of cells, more cells than there are people in the world. Cells do the body's work, and it is cells that use food for energy and growth. To be used by cells, food has to be broken down into pieces small enough to get inside all the different kinds of cells. This is no easy trick. Take this piece of cheese. You could cut it into 2 pieces. Then cut one of these pieces into still smaller pieces, and so on. Eventually, you would get a piece of cheese too small to cut with a knife, but even a piece this small would be many times too large to fit into a cell. Inside our bodies, the process of digestion breaks food down into particles much smaller than we could cut with a knife. Digestion does other things as well. All food contains substances called nutrients, and some of these nutrients must be broken down in special ways before our bodies can use them. Nutrients are chemicals the body uses. To stay healthy, we must eat foods that contain a healthy balance of these nutrients, which include proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, as well as vitamins and minerals. Proteins are found in foods such as chicken, milk, red meat, fish, and eggs. Proteins are for the body what steel and concrete are for a bridge. The steel and concrete are the structural materials that make up the bridge. In the same way, proteins are the major structural materials that make up the body's cells and tissues. We need proteins to grow. Proteins also make up important chemicals in our bodies. Carbohydrates are in foods like pasta, rice, bread, and fruit. Carbohydrates are like the jet fuel that makes it possible for an airplane to take off and fly. Carbohydrates are the body's main source of fuel. We need carbohydrates for energy. Fats are found in foods like cheese, oil, ice cream, butter, and meat. Although eating too many fats is unhealthy, we do need small amounts of fat in our diet. Fats are stored in the body as a kind of fuel reserve. When no carbohydrates are available, the body can use fats for energy. We also need fats because they make up parts of certain cell structures and are some of the building blocks for important chemicals the body needs. In foods we eat, proteins, carbohydrates, and fats are in the form of molecules that are too large and complex for our body's cells to use. Inside our bodies, digestion breaks these complex molecules down into simpler molecules. Digestion occurs in the digestive system, This system consists of several parts, including the mouth, the esophagus, the stomach, and the large and small intestines. Pinched in some places and bulging in others, these parts form a kind of tube called the alimentary canal or digestive tract that twists and coils around itself in our bodies. If we could uncoil the digestive tract of an average adult and stretch it out, it would be about 30 feet long. That's about 9 meters. Attached to the digestive tract are other organs that help in the process of digestion, including the liver, the pancreas, and the gallbladder. The journey of food through the digestive system starts at one end of the digestive tract, the mouth, the gateway to the digestive system. Inside the mouth, teeth cut and grind food into smaller pieces. This breaking up of food is called mechanical digestion. As you chew, glands pump saliva into your mouth. The saliva moistens the food and makes it easier to swallow. Saliva also contains amylase, an enzyme. Different kinds of enzymes help digestion by breaking up large molecules into smaller ones. Amylase acts on large molecules of starch, a kind of carbohydrate. Amylase breaks up starch into smaller molecules of sugar. This kind of digestion is called chemical digestion. Chemical digestion is different from the mechanical digestion that occurs when we chew food. To see the difference between mechanical digestion and chemical digestion, put some food, like a piece of meat, in a blender. A blender chops food up into smaller pieces. This is similar to the mechanical digestion that goes on when we chew. You can see how chemical digestion works by putting a piece of meat into a substance called gastric juice, which contains several enzymes. The meat doesn't break up into different pieces, but in less than an hour, it changes its color and texture. The enzymes in gastric juice caused protein molecules in the meat to break down into smaller molecules. After food has been chewed, you swallow it, and it begins its journey through the rest of the digestive system. When food is swallowed, it moves down a tube called the esophagus that connects your mouth to your stomach. The esophagus lies right next to another tube, the trachea, that takes the air you breathe to your lungs. You might choke if food got into the trachea, but fortunately, the body has a safety device that usually prevents this from happening. The opening to the trachea is guarded by a flap of tissue called the epiglottis that acts like a trap door. When you swallow, the epiglottis slams shut to prevent food from going down the trachea. The journey of food through the esophagus is a short one, lasting only several seconds. But food doesn't just fall down the esophagus. In fact, even if we chose to eat and swallow upside down, food would still quickly make its way up to the stomach. The reason is that food is propelled through the esophagus, as well as the other parts of the digestive tract, by a series of muscular contractions called peristalsis. Peristalsis works a little like a tube of toothpaste. Squeezing the tube forces the paste out. Food moves through the digestive tract in much the same way. Muscles behind the food squeeze together, while muscles in front of the food relax. In this way, peristalsis forces food through the esophagus and other parts of the digestive tract. When food reaches the end of the esophagus, it goes into the stomach. Inside the stomach, both mechanical and chemical digestion take place. Mechanical digestion occurs as the stomach squeezes the food, churning it and turning it into a kind of soupy mixture. Chemical digestion occurs when glands that line the walls of the stomach secrete gastric juice. Gastric juice contains hydrochloric acid and several enzymes. The hydrochloric acid kills germs in the stomach and helps the different enzymes work. One of these enzymes is pepsin. Pepsin breaks down molecules of protein into simpler molecules. In small children, another enzyme, renin, helps digest a protein found in milk. The enzymes and hydrochloric acid in gastric juice are so strong that they could eat away the stomach wall itself. However, the walls of the stomach are coated with a lining of mucus that protects the stomach from the chemicals in gastric juice. But sometimes this protection fails. This is a magnified view of a normal stomach wall. And here we see a stomach wall that has been eaten away by the stomach's own gastric juice. This type of damage to a stomach wall is called an ulcer. After the stomach has performed its part of the job of digestion, food moves to the next station in the digestive system, the small intestine. The small intestine makes up the largest part of the digestive tract. In some ways, the small intestine is like a coiled hose. If you could uncoil the small intestine like a hose, you would see that it is surprisingly long. For an adult, the small intestine, stretched out, would be about 22 feet long, about 6.5 meters. Most of the digestion that takes place in the small intestine occurs in the first 8 to 10 inches, or 25 to 30 centimeters. This part of the small intestine is called the duodenum. Near the duodenum lies the liver. The liver makes a greenish liquid called bile, which it sends to a nearby structure called the gallbladder, where it can be stored. In some ways, bile is like a soap or detergent. A detergent helps wash dirty dishes or pans by breaking up fat and grease. Bile flows from the gallbladder through a duct or tube into the small intestine. There, like a detergent, bile breaks up large particles of fat into smaller particles that are easier for enzymes to work on. Many of these enzymes come from an organ called the pancreas. Like the gallbladder, the pancreas is connected to the small intestine by a tube. A juice containing several different kinds of enzymes flows through this tube into the small intestine. One of these enzymes helps to chemically digest the fat molecules in the particles of fat that had been broken down by bile. This type of enzyme breaks the fat molecules down into smaller and smaller molecules. Another enzyme continues the process of breaking down proteins, a process that began in the stomach. A third enzyme continues the digestion of starch that was begun by amylase in saliva. Along with similar enzymes in the small intestine, the enzymes from the pancreas complete the process of digestion. But how do food molecules get from the small intestine to muscle cells, brain cells, bone cells, and all the other cells that make up the human body? The body has a transport system, somewhat like the highway system that crisscrosses our country, enabling cars and trucks to carry things from one place to another. The body's transport system consists of blood vessels that carry blood containing molecules of food to all the cells of the body. Along with the heart that pumps the blood, these vessels are part of the body's circulatory system. But in order for the circulatory system to transport food molecules, these molecules need to get into the blood vessels. The small intestine has special features that make it easy for food molecules to pass through its walls into the circulatory system.